Well, yesterday I cut our video off because it was just getting too long, but today I'm back with Know and Grow, and it's the A-Team series. We're on Allegiance. We've done 4 episodes of Allegiance. We kind of stretched that out because there is so much happening in our world right now to talk about, but I wanted to give you a bonus. This is an email I received from Jeff Childers yesterday. It's very good. It gives you excellent information on what to do if you're faced with the ultimatum of either being fired or having to get the vaccination if you don't feel comfortable taking it, which many people don't. So we're going to finish up with this bonus today, and here we go. We're going to start right in. I'm not going to do a lot of introductions and reviews and all that like I have done before. We're just going to kind of get right into it. So he starts off with some other things. He gives a disclaimer that he's not your lawyer, so it's not his legal advice to you, which makes sense. But let's go right here to first steps. And he says, unless you have a solid financial reason, do not quit. If you resign, you torch your rights to sue your employer later. And he said there'll be a lot of people that do sue, and that he even makes it sound like all that tobacco litigation that was so much in the news years ago, that it'll be like that again. And he says that employer policies are designed to convince you to resign. That's the best case scenario for them. It absolves them from liability. And if you quit, you'll be ineligible for unemployment benefits. Those benefits cost your employer a lot of money. So make them pay. Don't quit. Make them fire you. Now, he does say that there are some good reasons to quit. One would be if you found a better job, obviously. Or if you are ready to retire, you want to retire, and you can, just okay. But other than that, if there's no compelling financial reason, don't quit. Now he goes on to talk about how to tiptoe through the, I don't even know what this word is, but evidentiary minefield. So, if they have set an injection or termination deadline, they are busy collecting evidence to use against you to defend themselves in a later lawsuit. Keep in mind, every time you send an email or text about the policy or fill out a form, answer a questionnaire or submit a request for accommodation, they are you need to keep that in mind, because you need to watch your wording, and you need to keep everything on file somewhere in your files. So he says, anything you send your employer in writing, in whatever form, should begin with the words, I want to keep my job. I have been a loyal and productive employee here since, and you can give the date. If you've received any recognition or honors of any sort, you can list them at this point too. Every time that you communicate with your employer, start with that statement, I want to keep my job. Okay, at this point, what you're doing is keeping everything on a respectful level, and you're letting them know that you want to keep your job, so that if they try to come back later with after you filed the lawsuit for them firing you, that you have made it very plain that you're trying to keep your job. And so he says, we're going to call this the job affirmation statement. Okay. Don't put anything in writing that could be used against you. Save your temper tantrums and venting for outside the workplace. Very good advice. And I know a lot of us, and I've been there too, where you just get so irritated that it's easy to spout off. We were in a doctor's office once, and they wouldn't let me go in. John, my husband, had to go in for something. And you know how it is when you go into a doctor's office. Two heads are always better than one when you're trying to remember everything they say. So it's just nice to have someone with you. But they wouldn't, it was all about COVID. They wouldn't even let me stay in their waiting room. Okay, that's how bad they were. So, and so I know what it's like. And I did get irritated and wasn't so nice. But we're trying to be nice at this point. Okay, anyway, never say anything negative or even slightly critical of your employer. And if you've already done that, he says, and this is going to be a hard pill to swallow, but he says if you have already done that, apologize in writing. Keep everything. Build your, he calls it an evidence locker. Keep your evidence locker. What your future lawyer will want is evidence. Make a special file outside of your employer's file system to keep every single thing that relates to the policy. What you said, what they said, and so forth. Also, print everything online. Print every online form, FAQ, memorandum, etc., to PDF and save it to your evidence file. Now, I'm not positive about this, but I'm thinking that the reason they want you to print it to PDF is because it's more locked. Usually, when you do something in PDF, someone else cannot come in and change the wording. Where a Word document, they might be able to do that. I'm just guessing at that. He says, note, I am not saying to avoid talking to them about the policy. Just the opposite. Talk to them a lot in a positive way. We're trying to get them to make mistakes and say something we can use against them later. Do you hear? This advice is amazing. If you're a lawyer for a big employer, I don't need to say that. He's just talking about somebody who might be eavesdropping in on this. Okay, how to document oral communications. I've noticed a lot of these employers are trying super hard not to create evidence that can be used against them. So tons of communications about these policies are being handled orally. They might say, come to HR, Human Resources, and we'll discuss it. That's no problem. Here's how you handle that. After you've had the oral conversation, when you get back to your place where you work, of course, if you're in an office, maybe you can do it right there, but be careful not to spend too much time doing anything like this on company time. Do it at your lunchtime, but do it fast enough that you can remember everything that was said. Maybe if you have a phone that you can just record it quickly. The point is you're going to create an email and send it to them where you write everything they said and everything you said back to them. So after you've put down or jotted down all your thoughts from your memory of everything that was said, here's how to write that email. Thank them and frame it as your professional attempt to make sure you understood everything. So you would say something like, thanks for the informative conversation. I wanted to recap what we discussed to make sure I understood everything you said and didn't miss anything. State your job affirmation statement. To be clear, I want to keep my job, blah, blah, blah. Recap what they said. As I recall, you said this, whatever it was, and here is what I said to you. And then say, if I missed anything or got anything wrong, would you please help me to understand what that was? And not just, but also say as soon as possible. Here's how he says it. Please let me know as soon as possible if I've misunderstood anything or left anything important out. Thank them again. Thanks so much for taking the time to assist me with these difficult matters. I appreciate it very much. Then print the email out to PDF and file it away in your evidence locker. If they respond, print it out too. Document everything. Let's say that again. Okay, if you are listening, watching, put in the comments, document everything, okay? Just that'll help. And when you type something out like that in the comments or somewhere, it helps you remember. So write in the comments, if you would, just now, document everything. Okay, here's another very important thing. There are a lot of jobs where when you whatever, quit, that there is a policy in place where you cannot go to another job of the same kind within a certain period of time. Or you cannot maybe start your own business of the same kind without a certain period of time. And it's called, he's calling it here restrictive covenants. And some of you could be subject to them. Like my son Philip worked at Epic in Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin. And I'm pretty sure they had something like that when he left, he could not legally, because of their agreement that they had made, start his own company like that or go work for another company like that for within a certain length of time. So these might be called, you might have to dig out your paperwork, but this is going to be worth your time and effort. You need to take care of this like you would take care of planning something extremely important to you. This is extremely important. So you might have to go back to your handbook or whatever paperwork you had when you started. And this might be called non-disclosures, non-solicitation agreements, non-competes, maybe something else. But it'll be like what I just explained. Send an email right now asking to be released from those if you are ultimately terminated. Then write something like this, but he says you put it in your own words, but here is an example. Hi. And then you give your job affirmation statement. What's your job affirmation statement? Hands up. I want to keep my job. Okay. But in the event that I am terminated due to the vaccine policy, please consider this to be my formal request to be released from my non-compete, non-disclosure, and non-solicitation restrictions. Modify them as you need to, whatever they called it in their paperwork. Okay. You have to ask for that. If I do not hear back from you, I will assume that you have agreed. Crucial. Do not leave that sentence out. If I do not hear back from you, I will assume that you have agreed. See what you're doing? You're placing everything in a way. You're saying the right wording. You're keeping everything. You're printing stuff out. Keep it somewhere safe in your home. Even keep the the electronic copies. Keep them somewhere, like on a flash drive or somewhere safe, so you have everything, hard copy and also electronically. But you're preparing so that if you do get fired, you will be able to have a successful court case. So document it. Remember, write in the comments, document everything. They may or may not respond. If they do send you something from legal that says you can't do that or something like that, just email back. Here's the wording. I disagree, but hopefully that won't be an issue because I want to keep my job. Okay, document that. Document everything. Okay, check out your employment agreement. Okay, most of you are at-will employees, which means your employer can fire you for any reason at any time, unless it's something that falls in with what the government puts out as discrimination or something like that. So review your agreement and notice if it says anything about having to take experimental EUA. What does EUA stand for? If you know what an EUA drug means, go ahead and write it in the comments. I'm not sure what that means, but if it doesn't say anything about having to take an experimental EUA drug, take note of that. Now would be a good time to point this out to your employer, that they are breaching by adding conditions not in the contract. If they push back, say you'll get a lawyer. See, now you're beginning to get a little firmer, okay? So say you'll get a lawyer if you have to, but you'll expect them to pay for it if it turns out that you were right and they were wrong. Okay, work together. There is nothing whatsoever wrong with putting up a flyer in the break room or even sending a company-wide email for that matter, asking other people who don't want the injection to meet up after hours to discuss the situation. Man, I wonder about that. I would be a little scared to use my company email to do that, but I don't know. Just don't spend a lot of work time on organizing, and don't use company time or company equipment for it. Do the organizing and printing on your own time. And if you have a big enough group, you can discuss ways to legally put pressure on your employer. You could all try to take your vacation at the same time. You notice just what the airlines just did in the last few days. I'm sure you heard about it. I'm not going to take the time to explain it because this is a little long, so I don't want to get sidetracked. Don't try to hurt their business. Not directly, not as your primary goal. You have a common law duty of loyalty to your employer. So remember that, don't act out of just bitterness and resentment and anger. You need to have a well thought out plan, and you need, as Christians, especially if you're a Christian, you need to work. The Bible says work well whether your employer is watching you or not watching you. So you are there to bless the company. Don't lie, keep the high ground, but be firm. Use all the legal tools that are available to you. Okay, the most powerful exemption. First of all, the big employers are definitely discriminating against religious folks rampantly. It says Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits employers from discriminating against employees on the basis of their sincerely held religious beliefs. It says, and here's the actual wording, it shall be an unlawful employment practice for an employer to fail to release or to fail or refuse to hire or to discharge any individual or otherwise to discriminate against any individual with respect to his compensation, terms, conditions, or privileges of employment because of such individuals' race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. So just like they're trying to use the whole sex thing against employees or employers, you go ahead and if you're a religious person, you go ahead and take this religious one. And he says it doesn't have to be just religious belief. So if you're out there listening to me and you're not a Christian, you're maybe even an atheist, he says atheists aren't left out. Title VII's protections also extend non-religious beliefs if they are related to morality, ultimate ideas about life, purpose, and death. Okay? They are going to great lengths to document your religious exemption requests. They're scared of the lawsuits. If they fire you over your religious beliefs and can't show the employment policy was reasonable or that there was no reasonable way that they could accommodate you, then they will probably ultimately be liable. So, he also points out that there's no such thing as a religious exemption request. This is already law. It's not like you're having to say, please, can you do this for me? It's already a law. And that was a good point he made. All you have to do is notify them of your sincerely held religious or moral beliefs. Stop thinking you have to beg for it. So let me see. I'm scrolling down. Just give me a moment. Okay, this is important. Here's what your sincerely held moral or religious beliefs do not have to be. They do not have to be religious. We already said that. They can be a sincerely held moral or ethical belief. They do not have to be consistent with previous actions, like other vaccines you might have taken. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be acceptable, logical, consistent, or comprehensible to others or to them, because it's your sincerely held belief. It doesn't have to be long-standing. Even newly acquired beliefs are fine, so long as they are sincerely held. They don't have to be consistent with generally accepted tenets of your religious denomination. In fact, I've heard that it may be better to instead of trying to get it from your denomination, that it comes directly from you, from your heart, from your own beliefs. Okay, this is important too, and I'm going to show you something. Jonathan Shuttlesworth, I have him, then I'm going to show you just a little bit of what he found with Louisiana University or something. I'll show that to you in a moment, but this is about this. He says, this is Jeff Childers, not Jonathan Shuttlesworth, but Jeff. He says, I am aware that a lot of these employers are rejecting religious accommodation requests en masse. That's fantastic evidence of religious discrimination right there. That's an employer falling into a trap of its own making. That's a ton of lawsuits waiting to happen. So if they are just rejecting all of them, then actually they're falling into their own trap. Okay, let me scroll down. I want to see what's important, what's not. It says, if you can get them to say something anti-religious in an email, that is legal gold. I'm going to say that again. If you can get them to say something anti-religious in an email, that is legal gold. So stick to your guns and don't be afraid to talk about your religious beliefs. Okay, if your request is rejected, okay, here is what to say. What's your job affirmation statement? I want to keep my job. But I was confused just now when I received this notification that you are rejecting my religious beliefs. That makes no sense to me. My religious beliefs are deeply held, and I do not recognize your authority to reject them. To be clear, I have notified you of my sincerely held religious beliefs. I expect you to accommodate them. Please govern yourself accordingly. And then again, remember, document, document, document. Some employers have changed course, so just hope for the best. And he goes on to talk about natural immunity, but I'm not going to take time to go over that now. Okay, I'm just scrolling down. It says, be strong and don't quit. If worse comes to worse and they fire you, carefully document all your financial damages. Okay, so that's another thing. It's not all that back and forth paperwork. And you know what? If you're not an emailer and you work in a company that has nothing to do with you work on a farm or something, and it's not, you don't use computers and type and all that. Write letters, but make copies of every single thing that they give back to you. Okay, so besides keeping track of all of that, also keep track of every financial damage, everything.
Here's the next one. Victory for Western Michigan University student athletes who have religious objections to vaccination. Here's another win. It seems like all you hear is like losses. If you get on Twitter and Facebook or Instagram even, you feel like the country's at the brink of civil war. Then you go outside and just interact with people, and it seems like everything's kind of okay. Victory for Western Michigan University student athletes with religious objections to vaccination. Western Michigan University mandated vaccinations for participation in team sports. It said religious exemption requests would be available on a case-by-case basis, but then apparently categorically denied them. This is Dahl versus Board of Trustees of Western Michigan University, decided today by the Sixth Circuit, Judges Guy, McKeague, and Riedler. In an opinion, Western Michigan University, a public university, requires student athletes to be vaccinated against COVID-19, but it considers individual requests for medical and religious exemptions on a discretionary basis. 16 student athletes applied for religious exemptions. The university ignored or denied their requests and barred them from participating in any team activities. Now, as I'm reading this, remember, this is not just Western Michigan, or pertinent if you go to Western Michigan, and it's not just pertinent if you're a student athlete. This is a broader case now, where does an institution have the ability to deny people's religious exemptions? Well, they lost here. So if you're in a situation where your boss is saying at your job, they're not going to give you it, we're not accepting religious objections or exemptions. Well, you have hope here. 16 student athletes applied for religious exemptions. The university ignored or denied the requests and barred them from participating in any team activities. The student athletes then sued, alleging, among other things, that university officials violated their free exercise rights. The district court preliminary enjoined the officials from enforcing the vaccine mandate against plaintiffs. Now the officials ask us to stay the injunction and proceedings in the district court pending appeal. Although it's a close call, because the free exercise challenge will likely succeed on appeal, the factors considered in granting a stay favor the student athlete. Accordingly, we decline to issue a stay. The First Amendment, as incorporated through the 14th Amendment, prevents a state from prohibiting the free exercise of religion. Indirect coercion or penalties on the free exercise of religion, not just outright prohibitions, also triggers scrutiny under the Free Exercise Clause. Accordingly, a policy that forces a person to choose between observing her religious beliefs and receiving a generally available government benefit for which she is otherwise qualified burdens her free exercise rights. The reason is simple. Denying a person an equal share of the rights, benefits, and privileges enjoyed by other citizens because of her faith discourages religious activity. A party may mount a free exercise challenge. I hope you're listening to this.
Yes, listen.
I'm going to read that again. Denying a person an equal share of their rights, beliefs, and privileges enjoyed by other citizens like employment, because of their faith, then discourages religious activity. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to make it hard or make people not want to practice their religion because you're removing benefits. So you not only can't it's not only illegal to say you can't go to church, it's illegal to punish someone for going to church in society. A party may mount a free exercise challenge, even when it does not have a constitutional right to the benefit it alleges as being improperly denied or impaired. That has long been true. The Supreme Court recognized over 50 years ago that it is too late in the day to doubt that the liberties of religion and expression may be infringed by the denial of placing of conditions upon a benefit or privilege. Application of these benchmarks leads us to conclude that the university's failure to grant religious exemptions to plaintiffs burdened their free exercise rights. The university put plaintiffs to the choice: get vaccinated or stop fully participating in intercollegiate sports. The university did not dispute that taking the vaccine would violate plaintiffs' sincerely held Christian beliefs. Yet refusing the vaccine prevents plaintiffs from participating in college sports as they are otherwise qualified and were likely recruited to do. By conditioning the privilege of playing sports on plaintiffs' willingness to abandon their sincere religious beliefs, the university burdened their free exercise rights. That's a huge ruling. You can thank President Trump for that, because if Obama's federal judges were up, nobody would give a crap about your deeply held religious beliefs. Of course, not every burden of the free exercise of religion is unconstitutional. A neutral law of general applicability need not be justified by a compelling government interest. Basically, this shows how, and almost, I think every district, like if your challenge goes to federal court, I think every district now leans conservative, even in the ninth district. So what this shows is that there's going to be a problem if you work at a place and there's 3 Christians who refuse to get the vaccine and they fire all 3 Christians. That's going to be that's starting to look like it's going to be a problem. So that's Western Michigan University.
Okay, we're stopping there. So I thought that was a prime example of some of the things we talked about in Jeff Childer's email. But of course, Jeff gives all kinds of ideas on what to do and, what to say and what to keep and document and everything, which is really good. But that was good news, wasn't it? So keep your heads up, keep praying. It all is not lost, and God is on the throne. Just pray hard, work, speak up, do what you need to do, be kind and courteous, but firm when you need to be, and just keep trusting God. We're going to just believe that God is going to turn this thing around. Thank you so much for joining with me. It's a pleasure to have you with me and a delight. And I just want to give you that verse I like so much in Colossians 1:10b. All the while you will grow as you learn to know God better and better. We're learning together how to know God better and better. You can't live what you don't know. And next time is going to be number 9 of our A-Team series. Remember, the A-Team is all the A's, and the last one is adventure. Well, that sounds adventurous. I hope it is. And I have thought about adding one more, and that would be attitude. I don't know. That's a pretty big A, attitude. So I might do that. We'll see. Anyway, you have a good rest of your day or night, And I love you, and until next time, bye-bye.